Hello, and welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I am your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but something to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on Monday morning, so be sure to subscribe. So, like many of you, I've been working from home for several months now. You would think that this would be an introvert's dream, right? Working alone, from home, quietly without interruption. No one swinging by the office and bothering you, right? Well, let's just say it's not exactly how I imagined. Maybe you're like me and this telecommuting is relatively new to you. Maybe you're like my wife who's been working from home for many years. Or maybe you want to telecommute and that's still a dream for you. So we're going to get into some thoughts on telecommuting during this time of pandemic, some talk about staying productive. Of course, tips that would be effective whether you're in the office or not, but just with a little more focus on telecommuting. And then also I'm going to get my wife's perspective as she is a business owner and a mom and, has a slightly different perspective than I do. So let's get started. So being in quarantine is giving me plenty of time for reflection. What is this situation like for introverts? How about extroverts? These are certainly challenging times. I hope things are going to change for the better soon and our ability to fight this virus will be improved greatly. We're all in this together across the whole world, and we've all been impacted differently, whether physically, with health of ourselves or loved ones, financially, emotionally, or socially. But as we navigate our personal struggles through this or any challenge, when we emerge, what will we have learned? I feel fortunate that I'm still able to work during this time of pandemic. I'm working my regular job fully from home, and I now occupy this same spot all day long that usually was reserved for short periods after work, whether I was writing my blog or paying the bills or sending a quick email. But now I'm doing all of that and my full-time job all the time. So I never completely worked from home before, but now it's all day, every day in this spot. Of course, many introverts would enjoy this, right? Well, there's definitely some pluses and minuses. I do hope to return to work, but I can see that working from home may become more of a regular part of our society. I could see in the future, when things return to whatever normal is, that I would work from home sometimes and go into work sometimes, but we'll have to see how that all plays out. There's been some definite benefits. I can get out of bed at 7:58 and get to work by 8 o'clock. I save a couple hours each day not having to commute. I really don't miss the traffic, and I'm not spending money on gas and other things. I don't need to shave, and I don't spend that much time ironing. If I am dressed up and I'm ironing, I only have to iron the front, which is kind of nice. I have gone into the office a few days during this time, and all of a sudden it seemed like a pain to gather everything up and pack up for the day. Working from home and sitting in the same spot all the time, I do have to remember to get up and stretch, as I'm not getting a whole lot of exercise through virtual meetings. Another nice benefit is our kids have been forced to spend a little more time with us. We've had some family game nights, some movie nights, although they do get tired of us since they're not really spending time with others as much. The other thing is I'm wondering, with all of us at home, am I really able to judge this experience and see if I would like to work from home in the future? It's a little challenging. It can get loud here sometimes. And it also can be strange when you're home but not available for your kids. A colleague of mine said, when it comes to your kids, it's like you're here but not really here. And so that can be a challenge too. And then it's a common misconception that introverts don't want connection with others. And again, that's just not true. As human beings, we all need to be connected with others. Of course, the needs are going to vary between introverts and extroverts and from person to person. As an introvert, I'm naturally turned inward often and need some time alone to think and recharge. Normally, when I'm in the office, I try to have some time to myself to work on projects, but want, need, and enjoy working and collaborating with colleagues on a number of things. As I said, I currently see my wife and 3 kids, who I love, but I'm feeling some isolation from my work colleagues and others, yet sometimes not enough isolation from my coworkers at home. Emails and phone calls are already a large part of my work, but I'm relying on them even more. The technology is great. I can use my cell phone, my soft phone, which is my office number from my computer, Skype for business, Zoom, Google Chat, or any number of email accounts and work and stay connected. It's also extremely helpful to share documents and work on them collaboratively in real time. I'm in plenty of virtual meetings now. I don't really like being on camera, so I trade off between showing myself or just using my headshot. It is really nice to see people on camera just to feel more connected, so I definitely try to be on camera, especially if I'm speaking or if I'm running the meeting. But being on is important for at least part of the time, so keep that in mind even if you're not always comfortable being on camera. I've also done a couple of virtual meetings with my extended family, and in the future I'll probably do more of that because we don't get to see each other all the time, but I definitely want to see them in person. But no matter what, I think virtual meetings are going to continue to play a role, no matter if we're working remotely or not. There's going to be less travel, even when I go back to the office. There's going to be less travel to see those that aren't working in my same office building, and I see that happening. After all, we were all forced at the same time to adapt to virtual meetings. If this is part of your new reality, you may get tired of saying, "Can you hear me now?" Or you may get tired of being told that you're on mute. This just happened in an important presentation I was giving this past week. I was switching off with another presenter, and when it was my turn again, I forgot to, turn my mic back on. I was saying something brilliant only to be told, "Hey, you're on mute." Of course, this happens to everyone, and I try not to worry about it and laugh it off. However, the worst thing is when you're just trying to jump in and participate and you don't realize you're on mute and you're wondering why isn't anyone listening to me? And of course that can be a too familiar feeling for us introverts sometimes, right? There are benefits to virtual meetings. In a meeting or a one-on-one with a coworker or client, you can share your screen, and this can be really helpful for us as visual people. But there also can be some funny moments too. What's the funniest thing that happened to you in a virtual meeting? One thing I will say is if you're going to have an activity where you want people to stand up and be on camera, you really should warn them. I was in one meeting and the facilitator said, "Now let's get up and stretch." And I kept my camera off. I'm always dressed, but the top part of my outfit may not match the bottom part. So it's good to give some warning if you're planning on doing that. And there's also been some funny moments. I've been in plenty of Zoom meetings where all of a sudden there's a child in somebody's meeting or a pet. And sometimes you just see a paw or a tail in the funniest place. And my family's always asking me, "Hey, are you on camera?" Because they don't want to be in my meeting. Are you staying productive working from home? Always get lots of emails, and I find that can be a challenge. But I think now, more than ever, I'm getting more emails than before. They're replacing that talk that you might just have in the hall or stopping by someone's desk. And so even though I've always gotten lots of emails, I'm finding that I'm getting more during this time of telecommuting. And there's urgent emails, not so urgent, good to know things, interesting, junk, and way too much spam. Over the years, I've come up with systems for managing my email, so I'm forever tweaking this system. So, like I said, at the time of this writing, I've been telecommuting for several months, and there's more than ever before. To reach me now at work, you can call me, text me, send me an instant message, or see me in a virtual meeting. The days of just passing me in the hall are over. And much of course, what was in person for me seems like it's going into email. As an introvert, email can be a great way to communicate. I can take the time I need to think about something and compose my thoughts in my email. It's a good record of the discussion. I can retrieve it later. However, they can be a bit much to keep up on, and I think even more so right now while I'm working from home. Of course, responding to emails is a very important part of work. I've come up with a good time chunking way to set aside chunks of time to work and then periodically set up times where I go through email so that I can find focus. Introverts definitely need some time each day to find focus. Otherwise, if you're paying attention to every email that comes in, you may be interrupted every minute. I know people that are very proud of their ability to multitask, but I find I work best and most efficient when I can focus on one thing at a time. The truth is, everyone functions better with less multitasking. We can truly only pay attention to one thing at a time. According to John Medina in Brain Rules, he said, studies show that a person who is interrupted takes 50% longer to accomplish a task. Not only that, but he or she also makes up to 50% more errors. Instead of multitasking, Medina calls it task switching. Since people can only have one thought at a time, in order to do multiple things at the same time, they switch back and forth between thoughts. Some people are better at task switching than others, but no one has the ability to think about more than one thing at a time. So focusing on one thing at a time by chunking your time to work on certain things and then other time to work on email can be quite efficient. Now that I'm working from home, I still have plenty of interruptions, but I don't have the unpredictable in-person interruptions that I used to. Of course, those interruptions weren't always bad, but I am finding I'm getting a little more accomplished with a little more focus. But there are different interruptions being at home with the family and other distractions. My wife and my kids are all home all the time. And this comes with a lot of distractions. Sometimes I have to tell them, hey, turn the TV down, please. Or don't run the blender. I'm in a meeting right now. Or I might have to go in another room if both my wife and I are in a meeting at the same time. We currently share an office space. And so if I'm in a meeting and she's talking to a client, one of us has to move. So as we're forced into this different environment, what have you learned about your productivity as an introvert or extrovert? Were you previously getting the focus you need? Are you getting the focus you need now? Should you work on finding more focus now? And then if your work environment changes again, will you get more focus in the future? So what would time chunking an email look like for you? It's going to depend on the type of job you have. Should you check and sort your email every hour? Or could you get away with just doing this a couple times a day? Of course, if you're in a customer service type role, your expectations may be to be in your email very frequently and even constantly responding to email. So again, just depends on the job you're doing. Time chunking may require that we change the culture, expectations of those around us. Have you ever had someone pop into your office and ask, hey, did you get my email? When they only sent it like 30 seconds ago. Of course, there's not the popping into the office. Now I might get that IM, hey, did you get my email? Like I said, 30 seconds later. It's as if you should be watching your email every second. Again, this can be a very inefficient way of getting anything done. So instead, send me the email, and if it's urgent, you could also, or instead, send me an instant message, text, or call me. And please consider what is really an emergency and what can wait. In chunks, it's important to take the time to process all of your emails. I've often heard this called inbox zero, where every time you're in your email, you process it so that there isn't anything in your inbox. I'll explain that. I mean, I've seen people try to work out of a full inbox, and it's really hard. You end up scrolling endlessly and hunting for important emails. It doesn't work well for me. Often things get missed when I try to work that way. So I try to take the time to bring my inbox to zero at least every day. David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, has been very effective, and I've applied those principles to my email as well. For each email, I decide, is it actionable? If no, then I either trash it or file it away as reference or put it, on a someday maybe list that I might think about looking at later. If it is actionable, then I need to decide, should I do it now? Allen has a rule that if it can be done in 2 minutes or less, then do it. Or if you might want to delegate it or put it on a waiting list for a later follow-up. And I found it very important to track what do I need to follow up on. Checking my email in regular intervals has proven to be a much more efficient way to do things. If I let it all pile up in my inbox, important items are going to be lost amongst all the spam and non-essential items. Also, when you have your inbox at zero, it can be very satisfying to see the no new emails message. I do think we can be a little too accessible by email. It's so easy to find and reach out just to about anyone at any time. Do you respond to email at all times of the day? What's expected of you in work? In general, I'm not answering emails once I leave work for the day. Currently in telecommuting, leaving work just may be switching rooms in the house. But once I leave work, I want to now be present with my family or whatever it is that I'm doing. I shouldn't have a conversation with my daughter while I'm trying to answer a work email after I've left for the day. And this can be a challenge for the entrepreneur, as my wife full well knows. For her, when does her workday end? Sometimes it may never end as she's trying to take care of customers and pursuing new business. It's important to set boundaries. And she comes with a different perspective, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about her perspective in a bit. I think it is amazing I can fully access my emails and just about everything for work right on my phone. However, I don't turn on my work email notifications on my phone. If I did, I'd go crazy because I might get an email every single minute. So on my phone, I can get my work emails if I need to, but it's intentional. I'm not getting notifications. And normally I'm not checking my work emails after I've left for the day unless there's a good reason. Sometimes I work late on weekends to get caught up on something important. I try not to make this a habit, but it happens. So there's been times where I've been working late or I'm in the office on a Saturday and I've sent an email to a colleague and not expecting a response until the next workday. But too often I'd get a response right away. And while I definitely appreciated the response, I felt guilty for the person also working after hours with me. So recently I started using the scheduling feature in Gmail. It's pretty cool. So there's just a little down arrow on the send button and I can have the option to schedule send. So I can put it, for the next work day, first thing in the morning. I can put it for first thing Monday morning, or there's a variety of other things you can do. So sometimes I may make the choice to work after hours. Again, my choice, but I don't need to make someone else feel like they need to work after hours too. So the scheduling button has come in handy. Email is a great way to communicate, but if you're not careful, it can be overwhelming and you can fall behind. So find which organization strategies work for you and have email be an important part of your day, but not the focus of your day. So my perspective is largely from someone who has a full-time job. I have plenty of side projects and I've been working plenty from home, whether that be putting in extra hours at work or working on my blog and book or helping my wife with her business. But until this year, I have not been regularly scheduled at home for my full-time job like I am now. My wife, Carrie, on the other hand, has had her business ever since we started having kids many years ago. And she's seen the good and bad of working from home. And she's also working for herself. So that's a little different, of course, than being an employee. The expectations are different because she has a lot of things to juggle. But if she doesn't get her work done, she's not going to get paid. Carrie's a photographer, a graphic designer, and marketing expert, and mom of 3, and also a fellow introvert. She's experienced the busyness of being a mom while working with customers and continuing to build her business. She's had to figure out boundaries with her family, extended family, friends, community members, and others. She's also had the struggle of finding that needed quiet time to work as an introvert. In this past year, she's had the four of us, and the quiet can definitely be hard to find. We're in her space. So I've been discussing this with her, and I must say that I now understand her challenges a bit better than I did before. So she has been working from home for about 16 years with everything from babies and toddlers. We've had employees working with her in our house. And right now we have two teenagers, a preteen, and of course, her wonderful husband's with her all the time now, too. She's had different responsibilities and job types during this time. She's been paid for working on an hourly basis. She's had project based work as an independent contractor. She's managed an online store with regular hours with phone and chat based clients. So she's kind of done a lot of different things within the online business space. She loves the independence of working from home and, for the most part, being in charge of her schedule and projects to focus on. Of course, that depends on what her clients might need at the time. But even in an hourly situation, she's found that she has a certain amount of autonomy. Of course, she'll tell you that unless I'm here working next to her and bugging her too much and coming up with other things for her to do. So for Carrie, it is hard to focus in a chaotic environment, especially when there's a lot of distractions. When you're at home, distractions can come in the form of children or your spouse or partner, household chores, friends, Facebook, Amazon, or whatever you're paying attention to that isn't work. If you can quiet the distractions and surrounding noise, it's a little easier to focus on the work at hand. Carrie also thinks that she has a different perspective being a mom, and she thinks that I'm not as worried about the household chores while I'm at work for the day, and that may be true. Although, definitely all of us together, we've all had to look at how we manage the household chores together, all being at home. Several years ago, Carrie told me that she had a wise boss that would say, if you've got something that's taking all your attention, go take care of that and then come back and focus on work. Take care of your distractions and then work hard while you can. And I've seen her do that. There's always lots of little things to do, but sometimes you just got to take on that big project. And Carrie's also told me that it's great to work from home as an introvert, but when we're all home, things can get a little tricky. You have to set up some expectations and boundaries to make sure everyone is entertained and fed, but not also interrupting you every 2 minutes. It is a little easier now that our kids are a little bit older, but Carrie has experienced being home with two small boys. I remember she had a headset with the red light, and the boys were probably like maybe 3 and 1, and they knew if they needed something, they couldn't talk to her if the red light was on her headset, of course, unless it was an emergency. And our 3-year-old at the time was pretty sensible, so he would quietly try to act out charades, like maybe if he needed a drink of water or if he was hungry. It was very cute. But she's been there. We've been there. You may be there now with small kids, and it can be tough. But it's good to learn from each other and what works. And again, working together. And that's the other thing. I've seen her struggle with this over the years. People sometimes, when you're working from home, don't understand that you really got to work, that you can't just do things at any given minute. So if you're talking with a customer or in a video conference, the people in your house need to be in another room or have headphones on if they're using an electronic device. Headphones are good and bad. It's like sometimes it's a little hard to talk to your kids. It's like you're talking to them and you think they're ignoring you, but really they're just listening to their headphones. And I did that to my parents too, and I think I actually apologized to them recently for that. Carrie also will tell you it's helpful to have, make sure the kids are taken care of before you start something important. Make sure that they have snacks or, they're going to be doing something. But then ask them, let them know, hey, I'm going to be doing this, and, please don't disturb me during this time. Again, that is easier with older kids. With small kids, that really can be a challenge, I know. And Carrie's also just sometimes used a timer. And so, the kids, especially small kids, know, hey, I'm available right now for you, kind of thing. If you don't have regular hours that you're accountable for, like Carrie has, it can be a little easier. Carrie has definitely stayed up late to get her work done. The parts of her work that she needs to concentrate on, that she needs quiet computer time for, I've seen her stay up late to do that. That may not always work for you, but you may be working during specific times. So do your best to limit distractions so you can be there for your work during those times you're accountable for. I have watched Carrie work very hard, but she's also enjoyed the independence of working from home. It's been an interesting and challenging time for me and probably the rest of us, but I've learned some great lessons from Carrie that I've used during this time. Even though you're at home, you're still working, and sometimes you have to remind yourself and others of that. As an introvert, you need to find that quiet time for focus too. While Carrie stays up late, my quiet time is early in the morning. So find what you need. So how is life different for you now? Are you thinking of ways you can make some changes if we return to normal in the near future? I'm hopeful that we will. Are you getting the right balance between being alone and having social time? Do you have the time you need to focus each day? Whether you're working from home or not, please stay safe and well. I think working together, things are going to work out. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at quietandstrong.com or send me an email at david@quietandstrong.com. I'll add the social media channels to the show notes. Send me topics or questions and we can address those on the show. There's so many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Let's keep the conversation going. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs, and be strong.